Cape Ann Report, and I'm your host, Maureen Aylward. Our topic is Community Roundtable, and with me I have three guests: Bob Gillis, the president of Cape Ann Savings Bank, Greg Bover from CB Fisk, and Dick Prouty, former president of Project Adventure and the co-director of Town Green 2025. And we're going to talk about issues that they're bringing to the table and what concerns them the most. And Bob, I'm going to start with you.
Great, Maureen, thank you.
Thanks so much for being on the show. And this is a chance for us to just have an open conversation about issues. And your issue is Gloucester's 400th anniversary that's coming up in quicker time than we could even imagine, right?
It'll be here before we know it.
It's 2023.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be one of the three co-chairs of the Gloucester 400th Committee, along with Ruth Pino and Bruce Toby, two dynamic personalities who do a great job with this. We've been meeting for over a year now, and we have a steering committee of about 18 people. We have an executive committee of 5, and we're making some nice progress. We've had 2 public meetings so far, and the first one was at City Hall in April. We probably had 200 people there, and the last one was earlier this month at Cape Ann Museum, and there were probably 150 people there. And people came with their great ideas, and it's going really well. People are very, very excited about it.
Yeah, so 2023, 4.5 years away or so, and what kinds of ideas are percolating up? And just jump in.
Yeah. Well, some of the ideas that I heard were where they dry the cod. I think they called them flaking yards, but I'm not sure. Somebody hopefully will correct me if I'm wrong on that. That was one suggestion that came out. Another one was some place to store the valuable archives of the city of Gloucester. The city's old. We go back over 400 years, and we don't have the best situation for the archives at the present time. We have dedicated volunteers who oversee the archives now, but not the best location for them. So that was another thing that was talked about. There were a multitude of ideas, bringing in the Boston Pops, the Constitution, lots and lots of ideas.
Yeah. Greg?
I'm just wondering if there are any reenactments planned. We just had that great one, the battle, pre-Revolutionary War battle of Gloucester that was reenacted recently. Anything like that in the works?
That was discussed. And the 2 meetings that we've had at City Hall and Cape Ann Museum, people really, we went around with the microphone, Lynn Parisi did, and basically people just came up with their ideas. And another reenactment was another one. I think this was the first year of this one. The battleship, was it Gloucester, wasn't it?
Battle of Gloucester.
The Battle of Gloucester. And someone came up with the idea of making that bigger and better. And that's another thing, is a lot of people came up with great ideas, and we're encouraging them to find a way to implement those ideas. Bring in the people that you need to implement them. The steering committee will be a middleman for that effort, but we don't throw the ideas at us and say, go ahead and do it. We're just the resource that helps it happen, the framework.
So you want people to bring a plan or have a solution or identification of something that they might like to do, whether it's an event, or it sounds like you're moving towards even monuments or other things that might be possible. So is it sky's the limit right now?
Right now, the sky's the limit, Maureen.
Cool.
And the other thing that's been encouraged is neighborhoods, Lanesville, Magnolia. Dive into the history of your respective neighborhoods and come up with things that you want to do that really represent your neighborhood, or your ethnic background, the Finns, the Italians, the on and on and on, the Irish. There are just a number of different ways that you can help celebrate the 400th here, and we're encouraging everybody to throw it against the wall and see what sticks at this point.
Wow, it's exciting.
Yeah, I know that Lanesville Community Center is definitely thinking about the whole Finnish history there and how they can promote that during the 400th.
Yeah.
And the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation, of which I'm a part now, has been talking about this, and I'm sure we'll want to be proposing ideas about how they can say how that building in the history of our church really affected the 400 years, particularly the last 200. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to sort of emphasize history at this critical time. Right?
Yeah, and to go all the way back to the Native Americans who were here too, I would imagine that's important.
Yeah, we had Mary Ann LaPianca come and talk about the 3,000 Native Americans who were here when the first people from England and France came, and all that interaction. So that would be something to make sure people remember, is that we didn't discover this. We came and commingled and eventually took over.
Bob, what kind of funding mechanisms have been discussed for some of these events? I mean, where's the money going to come from to do some of these things?
A number of different sources, Greg. One of the things I want to give credit to State Representative Ann Margaret Ferranti and also Senator Bruce Tarr for their efforts in obtaining state funding. And this was not an idea that came out of a vacuum. There are several other communities that are having their 400th anniversary right around ours, Plymouth and Quincy to name a couple. So the state funding mechanism is something that has happened, and we're, thanks to Ann Margaret and Bruce, we're following suit with that. And we have a commitment right now of $125,000. It's a matching commitment. So that's one source of funding for us. Another one is that we're very fortunate to have Tom Lance and Rebecca Reynolds working on our medal, our commemorative medal, 400th medal. And Tom actually is, and I think Rebecca is too, is a numismatist. I had never heard the term numismatist until I got on this committee, and that is experts in metals. So we're working on that, and the fortunate thing is the time that we have to do it the right way. They didn't have the time to do it the right way. For the 375th, they put in a great effort, but it was a very short time frame. Fortunately, we had John Bell and Roger helped out, McNeil helped out with their experience with the 375th. So that's going to be a funding source for us. We're looking at bronze medals, we're looking at silver medals, and possibly even gold medals for this event. But whatever we do, it's going to be a fantastic commemorative thing, but it also has to help fund the whole celebration. So,
yeah. Well, that sounds like a good segue to talk about Greg's issue that he wanted to bring to the table about community action, community activity, engaged citizenry, which you certainly could use a lot of in the 400th celebration. So, Greg, why did you want to bring that out to talk about today?
Well, it seems to me, I mean, for me personally, my life is much different now than it was when I first moved here 40 years ago. Because somewhere in the middle there, I started to get involved in things in the city. And it started out with the Fish Box Derby. And then I joined the Rotary Club, of which I was eventually president. And then I joined the Library Board, of which I was eventually president. And just a number of things that I've gotten involved in. And I'm still involved in things like Awesome Gloucester, which is a microfunding organization that encourages people to have good ideas about how to make Gloucester more awesome, and then gives them $1,000 to do it. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's really been a transformational thing. And so I like to encourage other people to think about ways that they can make the city better. If they've got a pet peeve, there's probably a committee that's working on that, and they can ask to be involved. And a lot of times, committees are always looking for people to join in and try to improve things in the city.
What kind of pitch would you give to someone, a younger person, to get involved? Because there are a lot of folks who are older who are involved, like you, and moving through time and you've been active. But what about those younger people? We all need younger people involved, whether it's 30-somethings or 20-somethings. What are they? How are you getting them involved, or how do you think that they could access?
Well, for me, it was
starting
because I was a parent. And so I got involved in things that would affect my child. Like the Fishbox Derby, it was a thing to do. And we would fool around with that all year long, getting ready for the big race. But there are lots of other things that people can, the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts, all the Sea Scouts. There are so many wonderful things that are going on, and things that make our children's education and their life experience more positive. It made me more positive to be involved in these things, to be helping rather than standing back on the sidelines griping about stuff and why doesn't somebody else fix this? Well, I learned that if you say that, you really should be in there trying to fix it yourself.
Yeah, Dick, do you have any comment on
Well,
that?
I think that a reason for people of all ages, particularly young people, to get involved is to meet people and to network.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we have a very dynamic people in Gloucester, lots of new people coming in, lots of new startups in some of the existing industries. But unless you meet, it's a small enough place to meet the movers and shakers yourself if you get involved, and then all of it takes is you get somebody's attention, and suddenly you've got a part-time job, and then it's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to go off the island with all of the concomitant things that involves, but you may go off the island if you meet people here who work in Peabody or Danvers or Boston, that they live here, then you can get. So I think that just being able to network, that's one of probably the biggest skill today in this gig economy and this employment economy now, is to network and find a lot of different people. I think just getting engaged in people that are trying to make a positive difference, whether it's volunteering. We have people who volunteer to help us at the GMF, Gloucester Meeting House Foundation Summer Series, those musical events. The Maritime Gloucester has a lot of volunteers that get young people involved and other people of all ages down on the waterfront.
Schooner Adventure.
Yep, Schooner Adventure. So I think that we need to emphasize how we can all make Gloucester a more positive place, and a place that we can all work together to improve, rather than to compete for our own little piece of the turf.
Right.
Yeah. Bob.
Bob, you're a Rotarian too, and I know for me, I met more people in the first 2 years I was in the Rotary Club than in the previous 20.
Absolutely. Great networking opportunity. And with his list of things that he's involved in, he forgot to mention that he was a chamber board member too.
That's right.
Yeah. There's probably a couple others, but I was on the board with him at one time. So, but there's really no excuse for being bored in this community.
No.
There really isn't. Rotary is a terrific thing. For me, the networking is great. The overall mission of Rotary, basically, world peace and understanding is what Rotary is about, and what a great concept, you know.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the Rotary, both in Rockport and Gloucester, are they trending younger, or is it sort of mostly professionals, or is it
Greg and I can
trending
both
older?
speak to that because we've both tried different things, both of our clubs. We have a what we call a service membership, in which we meet the first Thursday night of every month. Typically, it's a lunch meeting, as Gloucester's Rotary Club meeting is, and we wanted to do the night meeting to give people, particularly young people, the opportunity to come and network and check out Rotary, because a lot of people, A, they want to serve, and B, it's not cheap to be a Rotarian. There is a financial commitment, and some aren't ready to make that, understandably, if you're young and just getting started. So the Service Club membership is an opportunity to get started in Rotary, do great things in the community and in the world.
Yeah, it's so worthwhile to get involved, and you can pick. You have your pick up here, that's for sure. Whether it's the arts or education, or cultural issues or government, there are so many committees that are available.
The Open Door.
The Open Door. I mean, there's so many ways to make a difference here, and it's a great topic to bring up. And so, Dick, your topic is of vital importance too.
Sure.
Which is helping Cape Ann go carbon neutral. Tell us a
Yes,
little bit
well-
about what you're
well,
bringing to the table.
For 5 or 6 years before I retired, I began becoming more and more concerned about climate change. And when I stepped down from Project Venture, I wanted to find something where I'd learn a lot of new things and I'd be able to make a difference using my organizational and leadership skills and networking skills. So I started an organization called Town Green 2025, became part of the startup of the Gloucester Meeting House Foundation, a 501c3. And we're a program of that, a spoke of the wheel of the civic hub that the Meeting House wants to be. We'll have other civic hub spokes as well. But we are aiming to reduce the carbon footprint as low as possible and hopefully to zero by 2025 or shortly thereafter. And you do that through becoming very efficient in new buildings and cars and heating and working on all different ways like that, by getting clean energy involved and getting rid of fossil fuels. And then by helping the school children and students of all ages understand what carbon footprint is and how it can be reduced. And we're working with a K-12 climate change goal with the school system and raising funds to do that ourselves. And then finally, through having a way to efficiently take the existing carbon out of the atmosphere, because we're now at 405 parts per million. We need to get back to 350. I mean, 400 years ago, we were probably 275 parts per million in 1623. And we're now up to 405, 410. And even if we stopped every emission right now, we would have to draw down that 410 or everything would keep melting and the seas would rise and we'd be in a stew. So this is a huge threat, but it seems like a long-term threat, but the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change just said we've got effectively 10 years to make a big turnaround, or by 2040, in 20 years, 22 years, we'll really be in the tipping point of no return. We can't get out of it without huge expenses and big changes.
So, Dick, what's happening right now? How are you moving into?
Well, I'll give you an example.
So that the city will take a chance.
The library is thinking about a new design for their building and enlarging their building. And I presented to the building committee there about how they could become a net zero building by using the passive house standard, becoming super efficient, 80 Rs in the ceiling and 40 on the window, 40 on the walls, and triple paned, and then being able to heat it with just electricity and save money.
So passive house is a concept that's European in its origin, but it's the most efficient.
It's a building standard developed in Europe that all of Europe now follows. It's 3 times more efficient than the best LEED standard. So like the West Parish building, new school, it's a good building. It was built to LEEDs. It could have been built to passive house. And our goal would be to encourage everybody to make sure that the next school building built in Gloucester is passive house, and that all public buildings are, and that we work with the private sector to really help do that.
How much cost does that add to it, Dick?
Maybe 10%.
Okay.
But you are cutting down on, what percent of your budget is heat and oil and cooling.
It's energy savings.
Yeah, so I visited 2 school buildings of 10 and 15,000 square feet in Maine that were built for $275 a square foot. They were private schools, so they weren't prevailing wage, but they were still very comparable to what an existing building would be. So there's not much difference, and there's a lot of savings in the heating.
Yeah, the return on investment is
really
fine.
big.
Of course.
So if that's something that Town Green 2025 is moving towards as a goal to have Cape Ann be carbon neutral by 2025, wouldn't it be great to say in 2023 that Gloucester has achieved this as part of the push towards the 400?
Well, if we achieved it by that day, we would be
celebrating. Right?
We'd have most of the world coming and visiting.
Why not? Why can't we do it here?
We can make a lot of progress, and that's when I started talking to originally Carolyn Kirk about this. It was about making sure the city took advantage of its ability to become an innovation hub and to really stand out as people who actually can do this, because there are cities in Europe who have become net zero, carbon neutral, the entire city. So it's doable, and we are now working with CEC. So Candace Wheeler is my co-chair,
So the Clean Energy Commission
Clean
in
Energy
Gloucester.
Commission of Gloucester.
Yeah.
Candace reports to the mayor. They're all volunteers, and Town Green has a group of about 20 active volunteers working on this.
So, Bob, what do you
Perfect.
see as this being a filter in terms of investments from the bank, or how are you seeing this enter into your space?
Sure.
This-
Well, you see all of the solar panels going up on homes all over Cape Ann, and people need to finance those. They either have the option of buying the solar panels or to lease them, either option. There are advantages to both, but the advantage to buying them is the SRECs, the tax credits.
And the 30% tax credit, federal tax credit, yeah.
Right, which is a big incentive. So we're seeing some loan demand as a result of that, and which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, are you seeing that increasing over time, or?
It seems like it's been somewhat steady at this point. I looked at solar panels for my own home, but I've got these big trees over my roof, and so it didn't. I was told it doesn't make sense unless you cut your trees down, which
You're not going to do.
Yeah, that's not
Right.
going to happen. But
Yeah.
it seems as though there's still quite a bit of interest.
Yep.
And I think there are.
So
a lot
we're
of others.
we're working now on cooperative solar, large solar installations. Some of them are in Western Mass, and some of them we're going to do on Cape Ann, that people like you can subscribe to for the same or less than you're currently paying, but you'll know that it's 100% clean. So then when you buy your electric car in 3 or 4 years, which there'll be complete subsidies for that, you can charge through clean electricity, and you can get personally your footprint way, way down. And so people getting aware of what their personal and family and corporate footprint is step number one, and then we really want to give you all the tools to get there. People have to, the UN panel said everybody has to really step up big time and make a big difference, more than they've been doing, for us to really address this big challenge.
Mm-hmm. So you're throwing out a challenge to
I am.
everybody here in our community roundtable, it sounds like,
yeah.
Dick. He's throwing the gauntlet down, make change and
Well,
make it electric,
I
right?
think building into the 400th is good, and building into nonprofits collaborating around and sharing their ideas around how they're doing this is another good opportunity.
Right.
A lot of nonprofits can get special loans from the state to do this. The state, we have the Ann Margaret and Bruce Tarr are two very strong advocates for addressing climate change, and they make sure that we have a lot of ability to get state support. So we're getting increasing state support, and Massachusetts is a very strong state in climate change. So we
Yeah, it certainly
we
is.
don't expect that to change. The Governor Baker and Jay Gonzalez are competing to see who's better at doing this, and I think nobody wants to adopt anything close to the federal policies that exist now.
Well, it would be interesting to sort of combine all of these things at once, where you've got Gloucester's 400th anniversary, and looking back at how they did things then. You've got Adventure that really has been involved with sailing and bringing goods from the old-fashioned way, which is by sail power or wind power. Then you have Dick's
Yeah.
focus on electric and going electric, and how can we see some of these changes happen at a more rapid
Could it
pace.
be as simple as more charging stations for automobiles?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely part of it.
That's that. I would think that would be part of it.
Yeah, and that's something that can be funded by the state through the Green Communities program.
Yeah.
I know that for sure, that they do provide funding for that, grants for that. But yes, I think we all need to
Those
move
are just the
forward on this.
practical, boring things, but they make a difference.
They make a difference.
They
Well,
all-
electric
they all
cars
add-
are
they all
certainly.
add up. They all add up. So
Yeah.
it's about seeing how all these things interconnect, and I think the library is definitely going to go for net zero. I mean, they really.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what's the feedback that you're getting? From
The
work
feedback
that you're
was,
doing?
well, we got to see what the architects say, but I know I'm on the Waring School Building Committee, and they're building a new school that's net zero, all electric heat, using passive house. They don't have to use prevailing wage because they're a private entity, whereas
Right.
a public entity would have to be prevailing wage. But any other building would have to be prevailing wage too. It doesn't make any difference. It's the technology. So if you get the right architectural designs, you should be able to have a comparably priced building. Maybe a little bit more expensive, but nothing that couldn't be paid off by 20 years of reduced heating and cooling.
Yeah, it's a significant savings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff.
One of the things I wanted to get back to, if I can, is a thought I had with the 400th and different organizations in the city. One of the other ideas that I like to push is getting 501c3s and other organizations in the city to work together.
So nonprofits,
Nonprofits
and governmental
collaborating.
and businesses all together to collaborate.
I mean, there's new collaborations in the city, Adventure and Maritime Gloucester, two separate organizations that have similar missions. We're doing a lot more together than we ever did. There's been really good progress in groups like the Chamber and the DMO Discover Gloucester, the destination marketing organization Discover Gloucester, and the North of Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau. Those three have been working together to study and promote tourism in Gloucester, and it's fantastic what's happening. And there seems to me that the 400th offers organizations an opportunity to think about projects that they could do as a collaboration rather than everybody coming up with their own separate project. We could have things that groups could join together and do and be much stronger, have more people and more resources than they would otherwise.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that there's this opportunity to collaborate. There's an opportunity to get involved, certainly from all these different perspectives, and goals to reach, and really good goals, social good goals that can happen from the ideas that you've brought around the table. And I want to thank you for sitting with me at Cape Ann Report and talking about these things and bringing them up. I hope that folks will get involved. And viewers, please check out our website. Get in touch with us on social media. We'd like to hear from you about what you think. What do you think we should be doing and talking about here at the table at Cape Ann Report? Please get in touch with us. Check us out on social media. And until the next time on Cape Ann Report, take care.